Before we get started on, realized while editing this episode that I said I was consuming milligrams of protein and creatine. I should have been saying grams. Sorry about that. Hey everyone, my name is Danny Dumas, and this is the Earn Your Title podcast. Today, we're talking about the 4 supplements that I believe in, even though I only take 3 of them. Now, if in a perfect world, we would get all the nutrition that we could ever hope to get from the food we eat. And I, unfortunately, have yet to find a perfect world. So I do supplement the things that I eat, I supplement for the things I eat with actual supplements. So let's start with the thing that I supplement probably the most, and that is protein. Protein is in all kinds of foods. And as a carnivore, I get most of my protein from meat. But I just don't get enough a day. And as a man who is actively trying to be healthy, actively trying to gain muscle, I think that is an important supplement. And the way I supplement my protein is with whey protein. And I'm consuming 20 to 40 grams of extra protein in a smoothie. I usually do it with some type of fruit. I like bananas. And yeah, that's the way I supplement. Why? I've done a whole episode just on protein. So if you want to get the details of why, but it basically protein is what builds your muscles. It's what muscles are made out of. And I feel like in a standard diet, it is hard for me, at least, especially when I'm working. At home, it's not as much because I control what I eat when I'm at home. But when I'm at work, we work a 24-hour shift and someone else is making my food for the most part. And I can't always determine. They're not asking me every day, hey, what do you want to eat? I was like, well, let's have 1.5 chicken breasts and we'll do this and that. It's I'm showing up and we're going to have pasta with minimal protein. So I supplement with protein. So how much protein should I consume? Well, depending on, what you're doing, whether you're trying to gain weight, trying to lose weight, trying to gain muscle, try to stay with the amount of muscle you need, somewhere between 0.5 gram to 1 gram per pound of body weight. And if you look up the World Health Organization, there's actually a much lower number when it comes to daily protein intake. And what they're doing is that is the minimum amount you would need to not get sick, to not be protein deficient. So we can, in general, eat a lot more. And because I'm trying to be strong, I eat about 100 milligrams of protein a day, 100 to 150. That's the target number that I'm shooting for. And you could probably go up to 200 without a problem if you're actively working out. So protein is the first supplement. The next supplement that I take on a daily basis is creatine. And if you're like me, you might have actually had a negative thought on protein. Back in like 98, 99, there's 2 baseball players, Barry Bonds and Mark McGwire. And they were going toe-to-toe for who could hit the most home runs. And these dudes were just jacked. They were absolutely ripped, and they were ripping home runs to the point where, somebody it's not right. And I remember them saying, oh, they're taking creatine. Those guys are on creatine. They're loading up on creatine. And it seemed like it was like a steroid, like they were taking performance enhancing drugs. And I wasn't that old, and I was a senior. And I remember, what's this creatine? Like, it must be magic. It's probably bad for you, right? If these guys are juicing up on creatine and it's allowing them to hit all these home runs, then it's got to be bad. It's got to be like, well, that's not the truth. Creatine is a totally natural substance. You create it in your body on a daily basis. If you didn't, you wouldn't function. It's part of producing energy, and it's other than maybe caffeine, which is the next supplement I'm going to talk about. It's probably the most studied and safe drug you can take. It's not bad. And without getting too science here, there is a thing called adenosine triphosphate. So we're going to go back to biology school. In order to make energy, and we have different mechanisms for making energy, but in order to make this certain type of energy, you take adenosine triphosphate, which is 3 phosphates. You dump one of the phosphates. It turns that into energy, and you're able to function and work hard, lift heavy weights, do some high intensity stuff. And the creatine helps get it back to adenosine triphosphate. On a side note, as a paramedic, if I show up to your house and your heart rate's like 180 and you're having some chest pain, I give you pure adenosine, so I don't have no phosphates, and it actually shuts your heart off for a second. And I remember the first time I did this in real life, where you give someone 6 milligrams of adenosine and you're looking at the monitor, it just goes out. And they're talking, sometimes they say it feels weird, but man, you try to hide the fear in your eyes, but when you give a drug and then their heartbeat stops for 10 seconds, man, that is like, it felt like my heartbeat stopped. So, yeah, but creatine helps in the role of producing the energy, and it's very, very safe. And we think of it as an athletic performance, but it's energy. Your brain needs energy to focus, to think. And there are so many good studies out there that say creatine is good. So if you're elderly, if you're a long-term adult, I haven't looked into it for kids. I can't imagine that it would be negative. Obviously, all within the right dosing for at least adolescents, teenagers, because when we make it, we use it. But I don't have data on that. But for an adult, you should take it every day. And the way it works is most of the time we get this from meat. And the reason I think it's beneficial to supplement creatine is because to get the 5 milligrams that they recommend daily, you do have to consume a large quantity of, like, say, steak. And there are some things that come along with that large of a quantity of a food like steak, like the calories. Like if you're trying to lose weight, and you're eating, 1.5 pounds of steak to try to get the creatine you need, well, then you're gaining your calories. You probably are consuming too many fats. So there's that. So by supplementing, you kind of can cut the middleman out. And this is the best thing about it. It's not expensive. I think I have a 50-day supply, and it cost me $25. It's a white powder, very dry. You put it in the water, and it just disintegrates. There's no taste. The only side effect I know of, and it hasn't happened to me, I've never experienced this, is you can get kind of an upset stomach, and just splitting up the dose throughout the day. Maybe in 5 milligrams is the recommended dose for the average person. If you weigh 300 pounds and you're 6'5", bump it up to 7.5, 8. If you're tiny, you weigh 100 pounds, maybe 2.5. But the benefit of creatine is that once our body is fully saturated, if you take too much, you just pee it out. Yeah, I try not to, I'm not a scientist and I'm not a dietitian, so I'm not trying to give you medical advice, but for the most part, within reason, you can't overdose on creatine. Now, when your body gets fully absorbs the creatine, that's when you're at your optimal levels, and that's good. 2 ways to do that. One is just take it consistently and just assume, hey, I'm going to take creatine forever. One, if you want to get it there quicker, over the course of a week, you could double the daily recommended dose, which would be 5 milligrams, which would be 10 milligrams, maybe even up to 20. So you do that for a week, you preload your body, and now all your muscles are saturated with creatine. You're never running out. So when you're doing high intensity stuff, you have this ready to go, and that's an option. I try to stay on creatine when I run out, haven't ordered any. I don't preload. I just go back to my 5 milligrams a day. I put it in my water and I drink it, and we're good to go. Now, if you've heard some negative things about creatine, one of those is that it causes you to gain weight. It causes you to retain water sometimes, and water is heavy. So you might start doing creatine and your weight might go up 2 or 3 pounds, but you're not getting fat. That's just water weight. It also can make you look a little more jacked because you are retaining water in your muscles, in your limbs, and it makes you look bigger, and maybe that's good. If you were doing a sport like rock climbing, where being a little bit heavier and you had a competition coming up, then maybe those would be the downsides. But in reality, you need your muscles to function, and I would think the benefits of creatine far outweigh it. And it doesn't have to be just for you. Again, if you have an aging parents, they should be on creatine. It is well studied, well documented. If you take too much, you just pee it out. It's a good thing. And I think most supplements don't tick all those criteria, which is why I don't take them. There's a lot of things out there that, there's anecdotal things, and there are some studies, but they're very small sample size. But creatine and protein, well studied, take them every day. You're good to go. The third one, and this maybe is controversial because it seems like a vice, and that's caffeine. And I think caffeine is awesome. And most people do. Most people aren't going to say, I hate caffeine because they're addicted to it. And this is my take on caffeine. I think you should use caffeine as a tool. I don't think you should be taking caffeine every single day of your life where creatine is different. I do take creatine every day, take 5 milligrams. I don't think you can go wrong. I think you should use caffeine as a tool. It's highly researched, highly studied, and it does show improvements in focus, in some gym workouts, in some athletic endeavors where certain amounts of caffeine can highly benefit you. There are some caution you need to use when you're using caffeine. One of those is try to delay caffeine intake if you're using it for just overall general day-to-day focus. So, you got a big day at work, you got a project you can work on. I'm going to take, the dosing, it could be, anywhere from 50 to 400 milligrams, depending. And this is very person dependent. You need to figure out when it comes to how much caffeine is effective, how much is too much. Somewhere, let's call it, 100 milligrams of caffeine. And that could be a strong cup of coffee. Coffee is usually around 80 milligrams. It could be an energy drink of some sort around the 150. Anyways, you're going to take this for the purpose of having more focus or maybe a better workout. If you can delay it 90 to 120 minutes, so hour and a half, 2 hours after you wake up. And the reason being is that as we sleep, we have all these hormones and chemicals that our body builds up to help us sleep. We process these while we sleep, and we start to get rid of them as we wake up. When you immediately wake up and you need caffeine to feel like awake, you block you getting rid of some of this adenosine, some of these things that I've talked about. You block the distribution of it. And that can cause later, because you didn't get rid of this stuff, it can cause the crash at 1 or 2 in the afternoon, which makes you feel like you need more caffeine. So if you're not using it for like an early morning workout, if you're getting up in the morning and using caffeine to like jumpstart your workout, then it is what it is. But if you can wait, then do it. Now, some people are like, there's like memes, there are t-shirts, there are coffee mugs. Like, don't talk to me till I've had my caffeine. There's this idea that I cannot function until I've had caffeine. That is what I want you to avoid. That is an addiction. If that is you, I would recommend not being addicted or being addicted to the least amount of things in this world. It might be naive for me to say, don't be addicted to anything, because I think we have addictive personalities. We're creatures of habit. We've had all these things built in to make things addictive. So I don't think you can get rid of everything, but use caffeine as a tool. If you feel like you have to have it, I would try to get off of caffeine until it is no longer a habit. Now, there's 2 things you're probably addicted to. One thing is the chemical caffeine. I know caffeine headaches are a real thing. I understand feeling groggy, all these things, but more than likely, just as much as you're addicted to the chemical, you're addicted to the process, the ritual of waking up, and it makes you feel like this is what I do to wake up. I turn the coffee maker on, I hear the water boiling, I sit there, I think about my day, I take my cup of coffee, I sit on the porch while I watch the sunrise as I'm sipping on my coffee. You're probably addicted, or you have the habit of doing that. Substitute that. Have some non-caffeinated tea. Heat the water up, pick the tea bag you want, put it in, watch it steep, time it, throw it away, sit on the porch, drink something warm. I've got no problem with that at all. And I'm saying, if you want to optimize your life, if you just say, life is too good to not have a cup of coffee in the morning, then go for it. But I just think we're better off when we're not addicted to things. So you could go on a caffeine fast, and maybe this is a caffeine, you ramp it down until if you're at 3 cups of coffee before you get to work for a week, do 2. And then the next week, do 1. And then every other day, get off of the addiction. And if you do this, the caffeine is going to work better. You won't have to take as big of a dose. So don't be addicted to it. Use it as a tool. The way I use caffeine, and I have found myself going towards the addiction, feeling like I needed to wake up and get going, is when I'm coming off of work. If I have something, and I had a bad night, like the other day, I worked a 40-hour shift, and each night I slept 3 hours. I was tired. And the third day when I actually went home after 48 hours, I needed to function. I had some caffeine, man. because my priorities in life, and I talk about this a lot, is my kids are a huge priority. My family's a huge priority. And I knew I didn't have the ability to go home and take a nap. That's what I needed. I didn't have the ability to do that. So I used caffeine as a tool to allow me to be focused and ready to go. And then later that day, I actually took a nap, but I used it as a tool. So I want you guys to think of it like that. Like I'm going to be a better person today because I'm using caffeine, not just to be a person. If you just needed to be a person, you're addicted. So the first step is, if you can, delay the caffeine intake. That will decrease that crash later on when you're tired of the day, which makes you want to have more caffeine. The second thing is, and I'm going to get some people that disagree with me, so listen all the way through my thought process. At some point, you need to have a caffeine curfew. For me, that's around 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock. If I plan on going to bed around 10 or 11, caffeine has a fairly long half-life, meaning, if something has a 6-hour half-life, in 6 hours, and if you took 100 milligrams, 6 hours, you'd still have 50 milligrams in your system. So caffeine has a fairly long half-life, and you don't want it to affect your ability to fall asleep. I've said it again and again. There is almost nothing more important to a healthy lifestyle than getting a full night's sleep, and a good full night's sleep, a restful full night's sleep, a full night's sleep where you go through all the stages of sleep, the REM, the non-REM. You need these. I know guys, and I'm sure I'm talking to some of you, who can take a Red Bull, slam it, go to bed, sleep all night, sleep 8 hours. You are not resting. You're waking up tired the next day. I guarantee it. You are not functioning at your highest level because you're taking this caffeine later in the day. It's affecting you. It just, you can't say, it doesn't affect me. It's not making you so you can't go sleep. It's making so you don't recover and rest, and your brain completely turn off, and you go through these phases that that renew your cells, that do all the benefits of sleep. Becoming unconscious is not equating to good sleep. Not remembering 8 hours at night doesn't mean you had good sleep. You have to have the things in place. And that goes into having a dark room, having a cool room. All these things are required to have a good night's sleep. Caffeine before you go to bed is going to make it so you don't have a good night's sleep. It's going to make it so the next morning when you wake up, you feel like you can't function without caffeine. And there is a life without that. There is a different life. You could be having caffeine your entire life, your entire adult life, every day, 2 cups of coffee, and you can change, I promise. It's totally doable. But, caffeine is a good thing. I'm not demoning caffeine. I use it. I want you guys to use it the most effective way possible. And the fourth one is something that I don't do, and I have every intention of doing it, and I haven't done it for a very specific reason. I'm actually going to ask for your help, is omega-3s or fish oils. I just actually did some blood work, and my triglycerides were high, and one of the things you can do is to increase your omega-3s. And I have tried to take fish oil supplements, and I get the burps, which, I know that's a little gross, but that fishy burp, it's so gross that I don't take it. But I think, researching it, I think it is a super effective drug or a supplement. It's well researched. There's a lot of evidence that it shows that the omega-3s you get from fish are good for you, and I don't do it. And it's my goal. I'm actually looking for one. So if you know one, hey, I take this every day, it's awesome, I don't get the fish burps, I'm looking for it. That would be the fourth supplement that I would take. Yeah, those are my 4. I haven't found it yet. I'm still looking for it. I'm getting ready to try. I'm going to try Momentous, Transparent Labs, and then Mountain Ops. I'm going to try those ones. Those are my next 3 to give it a go. But I think it's important. And we do try to eat fish once a week. We usually eat salmon. It's not something I can do every day, but I'd like to. And when it comes to, in food in general and all these things, there's a lot of advice out there. I would encourage you to do your own research, figure out what works best for you. And don't be ashamed that if you can't do the best, like obviously organic is better than non-organic, but and some people say, the salmon you get at the grocery store, the farm raised, is trash. It's garbage. It's better than Twinkies. Like the non-organic fruit is better than no fruit at all. Do your best. Make an effort, make a conscious effort. And I think that's what it's about. So get your protein, get your creatine, get your caffeine when you need it, get your omega-3s. And I think you'll be a healthier person. I'm looking for a couple guys that want to become better husbands, fathers, and leaders. And more specifically, they want to connect with their family. I am running a 2-week beta program where we're going to have some one-on-one coaching. We're going to have some online questions and answers, and we're going to create a plan, work a plan to connect with your family. And I need a couple guys to make sure that what I am putting out there is good. If that sounds like something you're interested in, there's a link on the show notes here. Fill it out. It'll take you to a form, some very simple questions, and let's get in touch. I am really looking forward to helping. My name is Danny Dumas, and this has been the Earn Your Title podcast, and I will talk to you later. Bye.